They say the internet never sleeps, but tonight it woke up screaming. A grainy clip labeled post-September 13th just hit the timelines, and fans are shocked. The video claims to show Snoop Dogg and Tupac together. After the date, the world believes Tupac was gone. Emotions ran high within minutes. Some swear the voices, the stride, the casual shoulder tap are unmistakable. Others insist it's a clever splice, a vault leak taken out of context, or worse, a deliberate setup to stir old wounds. Comment sections exploded. The family was left divided in DMs and group chats. And insiders are whispering about an MTV vault tag that shouldn't exist. We're not saying this is real. We're saying these are the headlines racing across your feed right now. In the clip, a muffled laugh lands over a line everyone thinks they know by heart. The camera tilts, and a reflection catches on glass like a heartbeat. That's where the story fractures. Was it an unreleased rehearsal, a mislabeled date stamp, or the kind of found footage that turns legends into battlegrounds? Tonight, we follow the trail frame by frame, rumor by rumor, as the timeline asks the question no one was ready to hear. What if everything we thought we knew wasn't? The timeline didn't just light up, it burned. One small file, a clip barely 60 seconds long, suddenly appeared on underground forums, and within minutes, it was everywhere. The title was simple, almost careless: Tupac and Snoop, 1996, released. But the date stamp underneath sent chills through anyone who looked closely. September 17th, 4 days after the night, Vegas went silent. Nobody could make sense of it. The lighting looked real, the voices too natural to be a reenactment, and the body language casual, familiar, like to people who had known each other their whole lives. Analysts slowed it down frame by frame, watching the way the figure who looked like Tupac moved his hands, how Snoop tilted his head when he laughed. Every gesture, every blink matched years of archived footage. Fans started flooding comment sections with disbelief, some crying, others furious. And in the middle of the chaos, someone claiming to work for an old MTV subcontractor dropped a line. "You weren't supposed to see that." From there, the story began to split in two. One half of the internet believed they had proof that Tupac had survived. The other half thought Snoop was sitting on something massive, something he had kept buried for decades. Producers from old death row circles started getting calls from journalists asking about missing tapes. An anonymous insider hinted that a cameraman had once filmed private celebrations for the label, but disappeared shortly after Pac's death. The rumor said his reels were stored in a mislabeled box that ended up in an MTV storage unit sold off years later. Suddenly, everything fit too neatly. Fans shared grainy screenshots comparing backgrounds, the same red neon light, the same studio couch where Snoop had once recorded a freestyle. Others swore they heard Tupac mutter, "We good now, dog," a sentence that sparked thousands of interpretations. Inside Snoop's team, tension reportedly built overnight. A source close to his management said phones didn't stop ringing. Family members were calling, reporters were outside, and friends from the old days were demanding answers. Some claimed Snoop looked shaken when he left his studio that evening, refusing to speak to anyone. By morning, hashtags were trending worldwide. Even radio hosts who never touched conspiracy stories began weighing in. One said, "Either the world just found the biggest archival error in history, or we just learned that not even death could keep these two apart." By afternoon, an anonymous post appeared on a hip-hop blog claiming that Snoop had already known the clip existed. The post described a quiet meeting years ago between Snoop and Tupac's mother, Afeni Shakur, where an old mini-DV tape was mentioned but never shown. She told him to let the past rest, the post said. But now the past is calling. Fans replayed those words like lyrics, spinning theories that someone had leaked the video to force a confession. Meanwhile, new voices emerged: old studio technicians, backup dancers, even a bodyguard from the House of Blues show. One by one, they started speaking in interviews, painting a picture of two men who might have reconciled privately before everything fell apart. Each version contradicted the last, yet somehow they all felt believable. What made the story truly explode wasn't the footage itself, but what came with it: a single still frame at the end, stamped with an MTV logo and a timestamp that experts said couldn't be faked easily. The colors, the static, even the metadata matched authentic mid-90s broadcast material. Digital forensics specialists stepped in, confirming that at least part of the clip was genuine archival content. But genuine of what? Nobody could say. The networks denied owning it. MTV's press office said they were reviewing claims of a mislabeled tape, while fan communities insisted that meant they're hiding something. Everyone seemed to forget one simple fact: even if the footage was real, it didn't have to mean Tupac was alive. It could simply mean the timeline we believed had been edited wrong all along. The drama reached another level when an old acquaintance of Snoop's, a former video editor named Keith, went on a podcast claiming he recognized the clip. He said he had worked on assembling behind the scenes reels for Death Row's European tour promos in 1996. "We used to cut random B-roll all the time," he said, "and sometimes dates got mixed up when the tapes were logged." But then he paused, his voice lowering. Except this one. This one had sound that shouldn't have been there. When pressed, he refused to elaborate, only saying that the laughter in that room wasn't just between two men. Sounded like there were more voices. Voices no one could place. As night fell, social media filled with side-by-side comparisons of known footage from the House of Blues performance. Someone noticed the same chain around Tupac's neck, the same small scar near Snoop's wrist. Suddenly, the debate wasn't about whether the clip was real, but what had been cut from it. Theories sprouted like wildfire. One thread suggested the video was actually shot days before Vegas, but intentionally mislabeled to confuse investigators after the shooting. Another claimed it was recorded secretly by someone inside the circle who feared what was coming. The speculation turned personal. People began tagging Snoop's son, old collaborators, and even Tupac's cousin, demanding clarity. None responded. Through it all, Snoop remained silent. His usual stream of posts paused completely. That silence only made things worse. Fans began interpreting his absence as guilt. One journalist described it as the quiet before a truth bomb. Podcasts filled entire episodes debating his motives. Some said he was protecting Tupac's legacy. Others claimed he was preparing a legal move to block the footage from being aired. But behind the cameras, friends close to Snoop described something more human. They said he wasn't angry, he was hurt. For years, he had carried the burden of those final days, the silence on the plane, the cold goodbye in Vegas. And now the internet was tearing open wounds he'd spent half a lifetime trying to heal the next morning. A new claim emerged. A retired MTV archivist, only identified as Mel, said he had cataloged footage from 1996 that was temporarily withheld due to licensing issues. He refused to confirm it was the same tape, but said, if something came from those boxes, it was never meant for public eyes. Suddenly, the mystery deepened. What else was in those boxes? Why were they sealed away for nearly 30 years? And who had the authority to pull them now? People started tagging the network's official accounts, demanding a statement. Within hours, MTV released a carefully worded tweet. "We are aware of circulating footage alleged to originate from our archives. We are investigating its authenticity." Those 16 words poured gasoline on the fire. Fans went from disbelief to obsession. Deepfake experts posted breakdowns, overlaying facial tracking points to prove authenticity. Skeptics argued back, pointing out minor mismatches in lighting. Debates got personal, heated, and emotional. Old interviews resurfaced of Snoop talking about forgiveness, Pac talking about brotherhood, each quote twisted into proof of one side or the other. Music forums turned into battlegrounds. One user wrote, "It's not about whether Pac lived, it's about whether history lied." That line went viral, shared by thousands who felt the same unease, and yet, beneath all the noise, something gentler began to emerge, a strange kind of collective nostalgia. People who had grown up during the West Coast era started revisiting their youth, posting memories of where they were when two of America's Most Wanted first dropped. Others confessed that seeing Snoop and Pac together again, even through a glitchy video, felt like reconnecting with an old friend. The footage, real or not, had revived the emotion of that era. By the end of the week, the clip had been viewed over 50 million times across platforms. Every network wanted an exclusive interview. Every blog wanted to own the narrative. And still, the main question lingered unanswered. Who released it, and why now? Some pointed to an upcoming documentary about death row's hidden years. Others hinted at a former associate seeking revenge. Whatever the reason, it was clear the world was watching, waiting for anyone to break the silence. But no one did. Snoop stayed quiet. MTV said nothing further. And the clip remained online, unclaimed but unforgettable, as the speculation reached its fever pitch. New voices began stepping forward, fans claiming to have found other fragments. More frames showing shadows that looked like familiar faces. Voices faintly echoing lyrics never released. Investigators tried to trace the upload, but found it originated from a disposable account routed through multiple countries. The mystery was tightening, not loosening, and every new theory only made the story stranger. Something about the way the figures moved, the warmth of the light, the casual laughter, it all felt too real, too alive. And the question haunting everyone was no longer just about authenticity. It was about truth itself. The tension around the footage refused to fade. By the next week, it had become the biggest cultural debate online, bigger than any album release or award show. Every platform had its own theory thread, its own self-appointed experts, its own emotional camps. Some insisted the clip was shot after Tupac's supposed death. Others said it was filmed earlier, but intentionally suppressed to fit the narrative of tragedy. And then there were those who didn't care about timestamps at all. They just wanted to know what really happened between Snoop and Tupac in those final months. The video had become a mirror for everyone's hopes and fears, and each person saw a different reflection in it. Behind the scenes, Snoop's inner circle was reportedly in chaos. One insider described how his phone wouldn't stop buzzing, how even friends from decades ago were calling to ask what the clip meant. Some begged him to deny it outright, to shut the story down before it spiraled further. But Snoop, according to that same insider, just sat quietly, staring at the screen on loop. He didn't speak for hours, they said. He looked more sad than shocked. Friends claimed he kept whispering something under his breath. "I told him not to go to Vegas," as if replaying a private memory over and over. Meanwhile, TV talk shows jumped on the frenzy. Celebrity hosts brought in body language experts, lip readers, and even sound engineers to dissect every second of the footage. One show slowed it down to 1/4 speed and claimed you could see Tupac glance directly into the camera before smiling. Another show hired an audio specialist who claimed to isolate Snoop's voice, saying, "You made it out, bro." The clip went viral again with that line added in captions. Though no one could prove it was authentic, fans started calling it the Vegas smile, saying it showed Tupac had outsmarted death itself. The emotional temperature rose higher when Tupac's half-sister reportedly posted and deleted a cryptic message. Truth surfaces when the world is ready to handle it. Within minutes, screenshots spread across social media. Journalists tried reaching her for comment, but she went silent. people began reading meaning into everything song lyrics. Old interviews, even Snoop's wardrobe choices in recent performances. It didn't matter how small the detail. Two fans desperate for closure, everything was a sign. One night, a radio host in Los Angeles claimed to have spoken with an anonymous caller who said he worked as a junior cameraman for MTV during the 90s. According to his account, there were dozens of unlogged tapes featuring private studio moments between artists. They filmed everything back then, he said. Sometimes cameras just kept rolling after interviews. We'd stash the reels and label them later. When the host asked whether the caller had seen Tupac alive after September 13th, there was a pause. Then static. The line disconnected. Producers swore it wasn't staged. The clip of that call went viral within hours as the frenzy intensified. Old tensions from the 90s began bubbling back to the surface. Rival camps of fans reignited the East Coast versus West Coast arguments, each claiming the footage vindicated their heroes. People who hadn't spoken about rap in decades were suddenly arguing about loyalty, betrayal, and industry manipulation. Documentaries were rushed into production overnight. One streaming platform announced a special investigation called The Tape that shook the world. Snoop's team reportedly threatened legal action, demanding the show include a disclaimer stating the footage had not been verified. But something stranger started happening behind closed doors. Insiders claim Snoop began reaching out to people he hadn't spoken to in years-old producers. Former bodyguards, even a few members of Tupac's Outlaw's crew. One of them, speaking off record, said Snoop sounded emotional but calm. He asked if we still had any footage from the House of Blues show, the source said. He said he needed to see it again. Like he was looking for proof that what he remembered was real. Another said Snoop mentioned a dream he'd been having where Tupac walked into a dimly lit studio and asked, "You ready to finish the track?" Snoop reportedly woke up crying. As all this unfolded, fans discovered something buried in the original upload metadata location ping from Los Angeles recorded, just hours before the file went public. That led to wild speculation that someone inside the city's old entertainment circuit was responsible. A small podcast claimed to have found evidence that a former archivist's daughter recently sold vintage tapes at a flea market. Within days, reporters swarmed local collectors. One vendor came forward, saying he'd sold a box of old VHS and beta tapes to an anonymous buyer who paid cash and said they were doing a school project on hip-hop. The mystery only deepened. Then came the biggest twist of all. An independent filmmaker named Daryl Banks claimed he had been in talks with a former death row engineer months before the leak. According to him, the engineer hinted about a lost segment of an MTV behind-the-scenes documentary that had been pulled at the last minute. The reason? It supposedly featured Pac and Snoop talking about faking their deaths to escape industry pressure. Daryl insisted he thought it was a joke until the leaked footage surfaced. Suddenly, his story didn't seem so ridiculous. Rumors began to swirl that there was more than one tape. Some claimed a second clip existed, showing a wider shot of the same scene, with other figures in the background. Others said there was an unreleased interview where Tupac discussed leaving death row and starting fresh overseas. Each new theory layered more confusion onto the growing storm. News anchors, who once dismissed conspiracy chatter, now opened their broadcasts with "Per Questio" on everyone's mind. Did we get the story wrong all along? The emotional fallout spread far beyond the industry. Fans flooded comment sections with heartfelt messages about loss, faith, and unfinished conversations. Older generations who had mourned Tupac in the 90s said the clip reopened wounds they thought had healed. Younger fans, born long after his death, said it felt like meeting a ghost they'd only known through music. Entire families debated around dinner tables. Some said it was disrespectful to the Shocker family to keep dredging up pain. Others argued that truth deserved light, no matter how uncomfortable, amid all of it. An unverified rumor started gaining traction. one claiming that Snoop had quietly scheduled a private meeting with Tupac's estate. No one could confirm where or when, but blogs reported that lawyers from both sides had been seen entering the same building in Los Angeles. A paparazzi photo even surfaced showing Snoop's car outside a gated property at dusk. The caption read, "Maybe some ghosts still talk back." Fans began waiting for a statement that never came. MTV's silence stretched into weeks. Snoop's social media remained quiet. The noise outside only grew louder, and yet those closest to the truth seemed to vanish into silence. Behind that silence, though, was a sense of something larger, something building. People could feel it. The story wasn't over. It was evolving. And somewhere, in the glow of screens replaying that mysterious clip over and over, the world held its breath, wondering what would surface next. By the third week, the story had slipped beyond control. What started as a mystery video had transformed into a full-scale phenomenon. News outlets from every continent were running headlines about the impossible footage. And even major newspapers that normally ignored celebrity gossip joined the chase. Every hour brought a new angle, a new leak, or another witness stepping forward with details that blurred the line between rumor and reality. The more people tried to verify the story, the deeper it twisted. It began with a late-night broadcast from a London-based outlet that claimed to have obtained extended footage. They aired 15 additional seconds showing Snoop and a man resembling Tupac inside what looked like a private studio. Snoop's voice was faint but audible, saying something about keeping it quiet until it's time. Social media erupted instantly. Hashtags trended worldwide again, and countless users pointed out that the camera's angle suggested a third person had been filming. No one could agree on what that meant. Was it an assistant, a producer, or someone secretly capturing the moment? The outlet refused to reveal its source, stating only that it came from a verified industry contact. As pressure mounted, Snoop's camp finally broke their silence. In a brief interview outside a studio in Inglewood, he told reporters, "I don't know what y'all seen, but I ain't seen that tape before today." It should have calmed things, but it did the opposite. People zoomed in on his expression, claiming he looked anxious, even haunted. Slow-motion clips of him adjusting his jacket circulated online with captions like the guilt move. Fans dissected every word, every pause. The more he spoke, the less anyone believed him. Then, out of nowhere, a new figure stepped into the spotlight, a retired security guard named Leroy Daniels, who claimed to have worked at Death Row's compound during the summer of 1996. His interview went viral in less than an hour. "I saw things I couldn't talk about back then," he said. "But I'll tell you this, there were nights Pac left the studio in cars that weren't on the records. And when he came back, he always told us to erase the logs." The interviewer pressed him for proof. He only replied, "Look at the new footage. Look at the time. That ain't no accident." Within a day, his words became a rallying cry for believers. Behind closed doors, however, the atmosphere was darker. Sources close to Snoop said he'd stopped sleeping properly. One friend described walking into his house and finding old photo albums spread across the living room. Floor pictures of him and Tupac. Handwritten notes from recording sessions. Even a pair of sunglasses Pac had once left behind. He kept saying it wasn't supposed to happen this way, the friend recalled. He said they'd made peace, but the world never got to see that part. The emotional strain leaked into his public appearances. At a charity concert in Long Beach, Snoop performed a medley of classics, but avoided every track linked to Tupac. Fans noticed and started chanting Pac's name until he finally raised a hand and said quietly, "He's still with me." The crowd roared, interpreting it as confirmation, though he never explained further. Clips of the moment went viral again, reigniting every theory that had begun to cool. Meanwhile, the supposed extended footage was being torn apart by analysts. Some insisted the reflections and lighting matched authentic 90s cameras, while others pointed out inconsistencies in the frame rate. One group of independent investigators even claimed to have located the original studio shown in the clip, now converted into a luxury apartment. They posted comparison photos showing identical wall panels and acoustic foam patterns. Skeptics accused them of fabricating evidence for clout, but believers flooded the post with comments like, "We told you so," and "The truth always finds a way." The conversation shifted again when an old friend of Tupac's mother, Afeni Shocker, revealed in an interview that Afeni had once confided about a project Pac never finished. She described it as something meant to set the record straight and hinted that it involved collaboration with Snoop. This comment sent shockwaves through the fan base. Could the leaked footage have been part of that project? Did Tupac and Snoop film something that was buried to protect reputations? Overnight, speculation turned into a new narrative that the clip wasn't evidence of survival, but of unfinished art, something meant for release after the smoke of the East-West feud cleared. This theory gained traction fast. A former death row sound engineer confirmed that unreleased content from that era did exist. There were vaults full of tapes, he said. Not just songs, but conversations, video logs, everything. Pac wanted to document the truth. Journalists connected this statement with the timing of the newly surfaced clip, suggesting someone inside the network might be leaking pieces of that lost archive. While the industry buzzed, Snoop reportedly met privately with an older producer who had once worked alongside Tupac. A leaked voicemail hinted at their conversation. In it, Snoop's voice sounded weary. "You think they'll ever let it rest? Even if I tell them the truth, they won't believe me." The voicemail ended with silence, followed by a single exhale, almost like a sigh. Fans called it the haunted breath, adding yet another layer of eerie myth to an already tangled story. In Los Angeles, candlelight vigils began appearing outside landmarks tied to Tupac's life, his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the old death row building, and the spot near the House of Blues where he last performed. Strangers gathered nightly, playing his music, holding up phones showing screenshots of the mysterious footage. They said it wasn't about whether he was alive or gone, it was about feeling close to him again. One fan told a reporter, "If it's fake, let it be fake." At least for a minute, he came back. In the midst of this emotional wave, a journalist uncovered an overlooked detail that made everything even more confusing. The MTV logo in the leaked video had a unique watermark design that, according to internal archives, was not introduced until late October 1996, over a month after Tupac's death. This detail shouldn't have been possible if the video had been filmed before Vegas. The revelation shattered any lingering sense of certainty. Now both sides, believers and skeptics, had ammunition to fight endlessly. Through all of this, Snoop remained an enigma. He refused interviews, avoided public appearances, and only communicated through brief, cryptic posts. One photo he shared showed nothing but 2 glasses of wine on a table beside an old cassette tape labeled "Truth Hurts." He wrote in the caption, "Time shows what fame hides." That single sentence racked up millions of reactions, every user convinced they knew what he meant. Was it an apology, a hint, or just nostalgia for a time when things were simpler? As days passed, industry insiders started whispering about a documentary in productions supposedly titled "After the Smoke Clears." The producers refused to confirm or deny whether they had the leaked footage, but promised it would reveal details about an untold chapter of hip-hop history. Fans immediately linked it to Snoop, speculating that he was finally ready to speak. Others believed it was another exploitation attempt by networks hungry for clicks. Either way, the conversation had grown too big to stop. Every time someone tried to shut it down, another twist appeared. Old footage surfaced, interviews resurfaced, people connected dots that might not have existed. The story had taken on a life of its own, part truth, part myth and entirely unstoppable. And as the days went on, one question kept echoing across every platform, every studio. Every conversation about the clip, what really happened in that room, and why was the world only seeing it now? By the fourth week, the storm had turned into a movement. The footage was no longer just a clip, it was a cultural reckoning. Podcasts, documentaries, reaction channels, and even mainstream news networks had spun their own versions of the story. Every hour, new exclusive sources appeared with claims that stretched from believable to outright surreal. Yet what made this particular scandal different was how personal it felt. Fans weren't just chasing a mystery. They were mourning again. For a man they'd already lost once and were now being asked to lose a second time. The emotional weight of it all began, pressing on Snoop Dogg like a shadow. Friends whispered that he was barely leaving his home, his studio sessions canceled, his phone off most days. One visitor described finding him sitting in the dark, listening to an old interview of Tupac's voice repeating the line, "Don't let nobody change you, dog." The visitor said. Snoop just nodded and whispered back, "You didn't either." It wasn't guilt on his face, it was exhaustion. Decades of silence collapsing under a single leak. Rumors about the mysterious tape multiplied. An anonymous insider from MTV claimed there were in fact 3 tapes, not one. One captured Snoop and Pac laughing in a studio. Another allegedly showed them rehearsing a music video never released. And a third supposedly labeled private footage was said to feature conversations about walking away from the label altogether. The insider's identity was never confirmed, but their message spread like wildfire. Fans began demanding MTV release all the tapes publicly. Protesters even gathered outside the network's headquarters, chanting, "Free the vault." Meanwhile, a new twist hit the headlines when a hacker collective claimed to have obtained the missing audio files from the leaked clip. They posted a transcript online, and while most dismissed it as fake, a few lines caught everyone's attention. The supposed dialogue went like this: "You sure you're ready for it? Man, I've been ready since birth. Then they gonna try to bury it. Let them. The truth don't die. The truth don't." Those last 4 words, "the truth don't die," became a rallying cry. People printed them on shirts, graffiti artists painted them on walls, and fans online turned them into a hashtag that flooded timelines. For many, it wasn't about the literal possibility of Tupac being alive. It was about what he stood for. His fight against injustice, his belief in authenticity, his refusal to bow to industry pressure. The clip, real or not, reminded the world of that spirit and of the strange, unbreakable bond he shared with Snoop. Then came a moment that shifted the tone completely. At a memorial concert in Los Angeles dedicated to hip-hop's fallen legends, Snoop made an unannounced appearance. The crowd erupted as he walked on stage in a simple black jacket and no jewelry. Without saying a word, he played an instrumental version of 2 of America's Most Wanted, Ave. Midway through, he stopped the track and said quietly, "If you hear him in this beat, then he's still here," for nearly a minute. The arena stayed silent except for the soft echo of the backing music. Cameras zoomed in on his face, glistening under the lights. That clip became the most replayed video of the year within 24 hours. After that performance, reporters noted that Snoop seemed lighter, almost relieved. In an interview days later, he finally addressed the footage directly. "I ain't gonna tell you what's real or what ain't," he said, his voice steady but emotional. "All I'll say is this: sometimes the past got its own way of talking back." Maybe that's what y'all saw. When asked if he believed Tupac could still be alive somewhere, Snoop smiled faintly and replied, "Alive ain't always about breathing." The internet exploded again, interpreting his words 100 different ways. But his expression said more than any headline could. As weeks turned into months, Experts finally confirmed that parts of the footage were indeed authentic, but heavily edited. No one could identify who made the edits or why. MTV's internal investigation quietly concluded without public explanation. Their final statement read, "The footage was mishandled, not manipulated." That vague phrase only added fuel to the legend. Fans translated it as confirmation that something monumental had been hidden in plain sight for nearly 3 decades. And yet, as the chaos faded, something unexpected happened. The tone shifted from suspicion to remembrance. People stopped arguing about timestamps and started talking about legacy. The leaked footage had forced everyone to re-watch old interviews, rediscover unreleased tracks, and listen to the music with new ears. What they found wasn't conspiracy, was connection. The humanity between two artists caught in the whirlwind of fame, loyalty, and fear. On social media, fans began sharing messages not of outrage, but of gratitude. One viral post read, "We spent years asking if Pac lived. Maybe the answer was always yes, because he never left our stories." Another wrote, "That tape wasn't proof he's alive. It was proof he was real." Snoop himself reposted both quotes without comment, only adding a heart emoji and the word respect. Eventually, the frenzy quieted down. The clip remained online, forever debated, but never resolved. Still, its impact endured. Hip-hop historians said it reignited global appreciation for the era that shaped modern music. Classrooms analyzed the media's role in myth-making, while fans treated the story like scripture, a legend passed down through generations. And through it all, one truth stayed constant, whether by accident or intention. The world had been reminded of a friendship too deep for time or tragedy to erase. The final echo came months later, when Snoop dropped a surprise track on streaming platforms. No promotion, no warning. Just a single song titled Brothers Keepers. The lyrics hit like a confession. "You walked ahead, I stayed behind, but I still hear you in every line. The world don't get it, they never will. We said too much, but we love still." Within minutes, listeners flooded the comments, saying it felt like a message to Tupac himself. The song climbed charts, not because of marketing, but because people felt something they couldn't explain. A mix of loss, nostalgia, and closure. And so the story of the mysterious footage reached its quiet conclusion. No official answers. No final revelation, just the lingering sense that maybe the truth had already been told in the way Snoop carried himself, in the way fans refused to let go, and in the way Tupac's voice still echoed through speakers around the world. The tape had changed everything, not by proving a theory, but by reopening a feeling that had never truly died. So what do you think really happened? Was this footage just a long-lost piece of history that finally surfaced? Or something much deeper that the world still isn't ready to understand? The truth might never be confirmed, but one thing's for sure. The emotions it stirred prove that Tupac's legacy and his bond with Snoop Dogg are stronger than ever. Maybe it doesn't matter whether the clip was real or edited. Maybe what matters is that, for a moment, the world remembered what unity, brotherhood, and raw honesty felt like. If you've made it this far, you already know this story isn't just about a mystery, it's about two men whose friendship shaped a generation. So now, we want to hear from you. Do you believe the footage is authentic? Do you think there's more hidden in those MTV vaults? Or was this all just a reminder that legends never really leave us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every one of them. And if you enjoyed diving into this emotional journey with us, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more untold stories from the world of music and fame, and turn on notifications so you never miss when the next mystery drops. Because around here, truth and legend walk side by side, and we're just getting started. We're just getting started.